Ozonics Killerwinds podcast back again. I'm Cole Tanner.
I'm Nick Simon.
Well, we have got some breaking news. Breaking news that broke a few days ago. Maybe by now everybody knows it, but I think there will be people that definitely don't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
We just found out we are what? T-minus 3 hours since when we found out?
Yeah, about.
Like really found out.
Yeah.
Not a rumor. Not rumor mill. This is in Gossip Town. This is cold hard facts.
Yeah.
Breaking news. If we had a news channel, there'd be like some cool graphic that would cover like boom, 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 breaking news. Something like, or Fox News has their big
Yeah.
breaking news. So before we get into the news, I'm teasing a little bit. We're going to go through this in 3 parts. Part 1, I'm just going to read the facts. Okay? We are fair and balanced. We are just going to read the facts.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to tell you what it says, what we know to be true. And it is true. Okay? That's number 1. Then number 2, after we just tell the facts as best we can, then we are going to give our opinion. That might be where it gets a little hot and spicy.
A little dicey.
A little dicey. Okay. Then number 3, part 3, you will continue to argue your side. My favorite thing to do on the podcast, the Cole Nick Devil's Advocate sesh.
Devil's avocado.
Little riff sesh where you continue to argue one side and I just bounce all over the map to say the exact opposite of what you say.
Yeah.
But it might be kind of how I feel too. So part 1, go through the facts. Part 2, we'll give our opinions of how we feel about it. And then part 3, little devil's advocate, little riff sesh. Okay. So there's 2 things that we're going to talk about. Should we do the first one, not the not so bad one first?
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah. Not so bad one first is that there will be no party hunting in Iowa for non-residents moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay? That's been changed. Meaning, and what this will limit is it will keep non-residents from getting a doe tag, party hunting, and shooting a buck.
Yeah.
Basically, okay? So keeping non-residents from buying a doe tag and then shooting a buck off someone else's tag.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
That was kind of a loophole that people were doing. I had heard of guys doing a lot kind of worse than that, right? They were buying a doe tag, quote unquote, party hunting.
Yep.
And then the guys that they were party hunting with were at work all week while they were sitting in the stand.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they were shooting bucks on their party hunting tags because they were party hunting when the guys weren't even there.
Yeah.
Because there is laws, you're supposed to be in a certain proximity of each other. So it's just some of that gets really, really bad.
Right.
But now, no party hunting for non-residents, eliminating the idea that guys are just coming here, men and women are coming here, buying a doe tag, and then they're party hunting and then shooting a buck and using somebody else's tag. So that's the thing. I think that seems like a good idea.
I think that's great.
Yep. The water behind the dam is always going to find the little bitty pinhole. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like if there's loopholes and things, like everybody's going to find them. And that was obviously one, whatever.
Yeah.
That's been patched up.
Squashed.
Yep. Analogy for the day. Okay, now let's get to the other one. Okay. So if you don't know, there has been a thing with the state of Iowa, this Executive Order 10, which has been I don't know what you call it, mission. What do you want to call it? An activity. I don't even know.
Sure.
But basically, the state of Iowa has been trying to interpret the laws and trying to simplify the language and make it more direct.
Yeah.
Okay? Interpret the language, simplify the language, make it more direct. That's Executive Order 10. Okay. So what came out of this is that these existing laws were interpreted by the Attorney General of Iowa. There's a law right now that equipment can't be left on public land overnight, except for tree stands.
Yep.
Okay, that sounds pretty plain Jane.
Yeah.
But what that means is the equipment that is everything except tree stands, that equipment would apply to ground blinds. Technically, it also applies to trail cams, but it had never been enforced.
Right.
So what that means is there's no real changes to the DNR regulations, but the DNR or the state of Iowa had the language interpreted by the Attorney General, and they asked them, the Attorney General, hey, interpret this, like, what are we looking at here? And as a result of Executive Order 10, trying to simplify the language, make it more direct, you can't use trail cams on public land anymore. You can't, well, you can.
Yeah.
This is so funny. Again, what it means is that any equipment on public land except for tree stands has to come out that day. It cannot be left overnight.
Yeah.
Ground blinds can't be left. Trail cams can't be left. So technically, you can still use trail cams on public land. They just have to be brought out by the end of the day.
Yep.
Which in de facto means nobody's going to use trail cams on public land anymore.
Yep.
I mean, I guess if you were going to be hunting down a big long edge and you were going to have to walk down the edge and you wanted to know that maybe what was coming out of the farm that you couldn't see, you could set a trail cam on the way in and have it transmit to you right away, and then you might be able to see something and then just walk back out and take it down.
Yeah.
But that seems like a lot of rigmarole.
Yeah.
So no trail cams on public land anymore.
Yep.
Interestingly, again, the DNR, from what we understand, is not meant to take a stance on existing laws.
Right.
Okay. This was an existing laws. It was just something that wasn't being enforced. But it sounds like it'll be enforced actively as we move forward.
Yeah.
There will be a section in the DNR regs this year about this as well.
Yep.
Interestingly, we were talking about putting trail cams out like next week. So I guess it worked out. Silver lining is it's nice that we found out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So those are the facts.
Yep.
The other interesting thing to talk about, just trying to let people know, is what came to mind right off the bat is like, well, what about if trail cams are found, by the DNR? Like, how does that work? Like, are there fines? Are they confiscated? Like, how is that going to work? From what it sounds like, trail cameras that are left overnight and can be, have been left, let's say, hypothetically, a DNR officer walks out on a piece and sees a trail cam on a fence post. And then the next day, the same time goes and sees a trail cam there. Okay. When those trail cams are found, they're technically considered abandoned property.
Right.
Quote unquote. Just like when tree stands are left after 7 days before or 7 days after season, that's considered abandoned property. And then they fall under what's considered the litter laws of Iowa, which actually makes them legal for anyone in the public to take if you can technically verify that they are quote unquote abandoned and have been there for more than one night.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of crazy to think then technically, if you could verify, if you went out there with your cell phone, like, bloop, picture at 3:30, and you went out there and the next day went, bloop, picture at 3:30 the next day, this has been here for 24 hours, it was here overnight, abandoned equipment, I'm taking it.
Yeah.
You could take other people's trail cameras. It sounds like that basically means you could take people's tree stands down after the 5-7 days after season.
Right.
So it sounds like the DNR, if they had to, and if they saw them and they could verify that they were quote unquote abandoned, they would be taken down.
Right. Yep.
Okay. So those are the facts.
Those are the facts.
So just to recap, the Attorney General of the state of Iowa, via Executive Order 10 and or the DNR or however it worked, was asked to interpret the laws to try to simplify them, make them more direct, easier to read. If you've ever if you want to absolutely like beat your head against your desk, just go on the internet and type in Iowa code and then just a random 3-digit number.
Yeah.
And unless you're a lawyer and you enjoy that stuff, you're probably going to be like, what am I looking at right now?
Yeah, exactly.
Every state has to set laws and regulations for everything. I mean, it's crazy when you look into that. Like I was scouring the internet trying to find the stuff about tree stand. There's stuff in the regs, there's stuff in the laws about rock climbing and about everything you think could do with camping and how long can you be there. And there's just tons of stuff out there. I mean, they have to think of everything. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy job. And it's probably hard to read. So they are trying to simplify it, make it more direct. And I guess this sounds like that was a consequence of that.
Yep.
Again, you can't leave equipment on public land except for tree stands. Anything that's left, ground blinds, trail cameras, whatever else, if it's left there overnight, it's considered abandoned. You can't do that.
Yep.
It will be in the DNR regulations this fall, and it takes effect, sounds like now.
Yep.
And I guess at the end of the day, if that happened and you got caught and they could somehow verify there's your trail camera, you could get a ticket.
Yep.
Okay. End of section 1. Hold on, folks. Here we go. So, do you want to? You start. You give me your thoughts because I know where I stand on all this.
I'm just flat out really, really bummed out about it.
Yeah,
Like it just really sucks.
takes the wind out of the sails.
Yeah, I mean trail cams is a huge part of what we do, and I think it adds a lot to the strategy and game planning, and I think me and you, we obviously love hunting the deer, but I think we probably like the strategy and the planning just as much. And now that we don't have that anymore, it really, really sucks.
Yeah.
And I mean, this probably goes without saying, but obviously we do a lot of public land hunting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have some private spots that I can hunt sometimes, like when you're there and stuff like that.
Yep.
But
Go together.
yeah, exactly. But you know, it was nice to you know, have options on public land that, you know, we could kind of game plan together and stuff like that. And
it's so fun to watch them, man.
Oh, dude.
It's so fun to watch them.
Man, like we were talking today, like sometimes I feel like I like trail cams more than actually hunting. I just am so obsessed with the trail cam aspect of hunting. I just love seeing them and seeing them do their thing, where they're at, what's making them be where they're at and stuff. And yeah, it just really sucks.
Yeah.
I'm really upset about it.
Yeah, you know, when I heard it, you know, and again, credit to you, you saw it first. You know what I mean? You heard about it actually yesterday.
Yeah.
Last night.
Last
You're like,
night.
oh, this can't be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we started digging in, asked around, and yes, it is true.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that came to mind for me is, you know, you could just kind of look at this and go, oh, okay, and just the facts of it. But to me, it's like, I feel like there's something else. There's a different narrative to it.
Yeah.
Or there's a different story that kind of plays out in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And it, again, with all due respect to the Iowa DNR, because they have a tough job.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to sit here as a backseat driver,
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon quarterback. Why'd you throw that interception?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When I can't throw the ball 50 yards.
Yeah.
Okay. So let that be said. It just seems weird because it's like the DNR is saying they don't want to allow trail cams on public land anymore without having to say they don't want to allow them. They're like, oh, well, you know, it's in the law already.
Yeah.
It just wasn't being enforced. We didn't change anything.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like almost kind of like a cop out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like if you know, well, it's not our job to take a stance. We're just here to enforce the laws.
Yeah.
But it's like not deciding, not making a decision is making a decision.
Yeah.
They obviously, I wish that they would come out and say, you know what? We don't want trail cams on public anymore. We think that, you know, when we had Jace here last week, one of the things that I thought was really interesting to hear him talk about, he kept talking about the public land. He kept talking about deer.
Yep.
He talked about all of it from a biological perspective as a resource.
Mm-hmm.
So they obviously, the Iowa DNR sees some benefit to the resource of deer to not have trail cams on public land.
Yeah.
It would be awesome if they would publicly just come out and say that. Is it for ethical reasons? Is it for more, is there an ethical reason? Do they feel like it makes it not fair chase?
Yeah.
Like, but them kind of like, I don't want to say hiding behind, but just not really.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
It's just like, it's like, because the fact of the matter is that the precedent has been set to allow tree stands to stay.
Yeah.
So why couldn't you just put trail cams in there?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like we would be like moving, the earth to be able to make that happen. Like we're not moving the Great Pyramids. Like it's already in there. The tree stands can stay. So let's just leave trail cams in there too. But they obviously don't want them on public land.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I mean, say we conducted the survey, we did research, and it's leading us to believe that even hunters don't want trail cams on there, or even hunters think it's unethical. Then just come out and say that.
Well, and it's kind of funny now, like, listen, my wife doesn't listen to the podcast, I don't think. So if she hears this, I'm really sorry. But sometimes, like, how do I look in this dress? You look great, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a loaded question. You know what I mean? Sometimes you're just like, am I going to get in trouble with how I answer this?
Yeah.
So you always, but sometimes it feels like you're playing with a little bit of a loaded deck. You know what I'm saying? Meaning, I got the survey last fall. We talked about the survey. Like, man, there's a lot of questions about trail cams on there.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
And then we go to the meeting, and we ask, and then they just, like, ironically, that Executive Order 10 got brought up numerous times in the meeting about other things too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, what does that actually mean? Like, interpreting the law, like, what do you, like, so what is that? It's like, things going to change? Like, what does that mean? And then all of a sudden now this drops, and you look at it, you go, oh.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. So you were, it's like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It just felt like, if you walked me to the end of the plank, the only place we can go is off the end of it. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it just kind of necked us down to like, oh, cause that's why they did that. Oh, that's why they did that. And then they got to, and they had, and I guess that's what it is.
Yeah.
I guess, obviously, I don't like it. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm like, I'm complaining and I'm not happy because, yeah. And again, it is what it is. Before the podcast started, and I think one thing that you had said, like Nick's been in a real tizzy today. He has been, if you've seen the Snickers commercials where you're hangry, Nick has just been real hangry all day.
Been boiling. Man.
Oh yeah. He's been fired up. I've been in the middle of a couple things and he just comes charging in and he's just like, and the thing you said earlier, you're like, well, where does it stop? Like, all of a sudden now it's the trail cams that are the problem. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's where we're going to draw that's where we're going to, this is the hill you're going to die on. Like, this is the thing that you want to stop is trail cameras.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, it wasn't, it wasn't a certain poundage of a bow that guys that are shooting bows 67, 80, 90, 100 yards, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't all these other advances in technology that like, or whatever. And I'm not picking on bows, you know what I mean? Or whatever type of technology, you know what I'm saying? Like, I love that my bow can shoot that far, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so it's just weird that like, they obviously, but like I told you, they are making a very clear line in the sand.
Yeah.
They're saying, hey, this is where, and maybe if we had somebody here, they would go like, well, we're not saying that at all. We're not here to take a stance. We're here just to enforce. Yeah, but so like you guys have no say in the laws. Who actually sets them then? If you guys don't have a stance, you have to have a stance.
Yeah.
They're called DNR regulations.
Yeah, and it's the DNR. The DNR runs the DNR regulations. Like, you should be able to have some sort of a voice for the stuff that you're working on.
So they do. It's like they're trying not to make anybody mad, or I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Again, doesn't sound like there's been like an actual like super public formal announcement. So it'd be interesting to see the press release. There's got to be some sort of press release that's going to come out probably by the time this airs. You know what I mean? That's like talking about it. Because if it's being rumored out there and like it's just really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of questions on the survey about Do people think they're ethical? And we've had a lot of discussion on this podcast, and I have been the one to say, and again, now I'm going to, we're not really into part 3 yet, but I will say, just as a hunter myself, there have been times that I've used cell cams, and I've used them in such a way that I'll set them up where I can't see.
Yeah.
And I'll be sitting in my tree stand and the cell cam goes off, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's the deer. Like, I stand up and boom, there he pops out. Like, you can do that.
Yeah.
The other thing that's crazy is, like, that Jace, he talked about that, and I didn't know it was this low. The percentage of public land in Iowa, what was it?
2%.
2% of Iowa. So I guess maybe the argument for the Iowa DNR is like, well, is this really going to change anything? 98% of the land you can use them on. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what they're going to look at. I go, well, geez, really, guy? Like, you're sitting here making this big fuss. Like, but 50% of the spots we hunt are public land.
Yeah. And
what we also know from the survey is that what was it of residents? It was like between 10 and 20%.
Yeah, I think it was like 15% or something.
Of residents in Iowa hunt public ground.
Yeah.
Well,
and that 98% of the land that's not public is super expensive now. And a guy like me who's young and just out of college, I can't afford to go do that. And so now, since I can't afford that, it's taken away one of my favorite aspects of hunting.
The trail cam part.
The trail cam part.
Because
so now it's like you have to pay to get the full hunting experience. And I think that's dead wrong, because it's creating it'll create a divide now, like in public land hunters and private land hunters. And I just think that that's wrong.
Well, and I tell you what, it's be really interesting to see. Again, you don't know what you know till you know it.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Right.
If I was going to guess, I would say that you would think that 10 years from now, there'll be more guys hunting private ground.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to start over. I think in the next 5 years, there'll be more guys hunting private ground because, again, not being able to even know what's in a spot, know what's out there for certain type of deer, whatever you might be looking for, whatever your goal is, you know what I mean? But you can do that on private ground,
Yeah.
That's one thing I think will happen. I think there'll be a lot more trail cameras right up against the fences.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Dude, that was the first thing that I thought. I was like, okay, what private spots are around that we could get permission for?
Yeah.
Just to put trail cameras on.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I understand if you want me to hunt it, but can I just put a cam like 5 yards on the other side of the fence?
Yeah.
I can't put it on this side of the fence, but can I put it on your side?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's seriously where my brain went.
Yeah.
But I think in the next 5 years, you'll see a bigger push to private ground. You know what I mean? Leased ground. I think that probably makes, land prices, everything maybe go up, maybe not.
Yeah.
But in defense of the DNR, they obviously think there's a benefit to the resource.
Yeah.
And I will say, we've talked about this on the podcast. We went down to a spot that I used to hunt a ton when I was in college. And that was 10 plus years ago, more than that, to now. And the difference between then and now is then you walked out there and you felt like you were one of one.
Yeah.
You felt like you were the only guy out there. You felt like you were walking into the great unknown. It was this majestic wilderness.
Yeah.
It really felt that way to me. I mean, it was like, wow, this is wild country. Like, there's some big deer in here. You just felt like, you're like, holy crap. You walk in there now and you feel like you're just a number.
Yeah.
Because we walked in not that far and saw a half a dozen or more cell cams.
Yeah.
Cam. It was like we were trying to walk behind them after the first like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I was like, geez, this is ridiculous. I mean, how deer, like we're walking, like how do deer get by? Like there's no way, So with that said, I like that because I don't like the way it makes me feel when I see all those cell cams and I'm like, geez, guys, come on. Like, where does it stop?
Yeah.
And so the DNR is saying, hey, this is where it stops. Like, it's stopping.
Yeah.
It's stopped. We're done.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
And they didn't say just cell cams. It's trail cameras.
Yeah, exactly.
All together.
Yeah.
Again, that would be incredibly hard to police. You see some of these Western states are like, oh, no cell cams, regular trail. How are you going to do that?
Yeah, exactly.
You're just like, oh, it's not a cell cam. Oh, it has an antenna. Oh, it doesn't work. How are they going to prove that?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like so hard.
Yeah.
But so in the defense of the DNR, I think in the 10-year, hypothetical situation we're talking about, there'll be some really big bucks walking around, because I think that public spots will get even more overlooked than they do now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you're going to go, well, I can't go in there and I can't scout it. If I'm going to take my 5 or 10 days of vacation or whatever, and I'm going to go and I'm going to put my time in the stand, and I'm trying to shoot a mature buck, and I know I've got one over here on this private spot or permission piece or, lease. I don't know what's out there.
Is there going to be more bucks running around though?
Man, I would think.
I don't know, because I feel like if people aren't able to do any inventory and stuff, the first 140 that walks by, they're going to shoot. Because they're not going to know. And if they only have a set amount of days to go and hunt,
but
is this going to be my only chance?
Maybe, but do you think that like, if there's the bottom, middle, and top of the pyramid, and the bottom is a 1.5-year-old, the middle is a 140-ish, and the top of the pyramid is like a 160 mature higher buck.
Yeah.
If a guy walks out there and shoots a 140, then those 160 mature bucks are just going to get bigger and older because they're never going to get shot. Now you're going to you might create that age gap eventually. Yeah. So maybe, I don't know. I look at it both ways. Yeah. Because those big mature bucks, they make it through now, and it's hard for them to not be seen. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't know. So let's move into part 3. Let's play devil's advocate. Okay. Because we're kind of getting into that now. Okay. So that's one thing I was going to say about the devil's advocate part is that maybe it could be good. You know what I mean? Yeah. For the fact that it will allow more deer to be unseen, could let more deer get through. Mm-hmm. Iowa does have limited hunting during the rut, but they are starting to allow more methods of take.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Yep. And so, and you can see how in the state of Iowa, how popular the bow season's gotten for residents and non-residents. Yeah. So if mature whitetails are a bubble, you know what I mean? Like, are we starting to pressure that bubble more? And we need to do something to like let off that pressure just a skosh. Yeah. And maybe that's what it needs. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I feel for you, because I mean, the one thing getting to know you is the difference between you and me is like during turkey season, I like to scout for turkeys, but like I look at it every day, but I'm not like freaking out about it and like downloading every video. Like I look at them and you see them before I see them. You're like, hey man, did you see the top field? I'm like, oh, I haven't looked. You're like, it's 2:00 in the afternoon. I was like, oh yeah, I just don't. You're into like trail cam watching. Yeah. Like you do it as like a hobby. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's almost like they cut off your arm today. You're just like,
it feels like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're like, well, because I mean, you said earlier, like, well, what am I going to do all summer? Like, we were putting cams out next week. We were literally the public spots. Did we not like take the piece of paper and go, okay, here's what we're thinking for the summer. Here's what we're thinking for the fall. Where are we going to move stuff? Where are we going to set stuff? Yeah. On this ridge line over here on this spot. Like we had it all mapped out. Yeah. Well, 60% of that's gone.
Dang, you're more than that.
3 out of the 5 spots are gone.
Yeah.
3 out of the 5 spots. Yeah. You're just kind of.
You're just going in blind now.
Yeah. Which is funny because, and again, play devil's advocate. We're sitting here complaining about this and ranting and raving about this. And dude, this is what I did for 20 plus years. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and I know people now that don't even use trail cameras. Yeah. What they do is they go in there on the right day, on the right wind, on the right stand. Yeah. And that's when they hunt them, you know? We talked to Zach Grin when we have had him on the podcast. Sometimes trail cameras probably save more deer's lives than kill them, so it'll be interesting. Yeah. I really hope that the DNR comes out with some sort of statement that it kind of explains their stance. But if they just really go, well, we're just, it's not our job to take a stance on these. It's just our job to enforce the laws. Yeah. They're already there. Yeah. It's like, really? Because if you wanted to take a stance of, well, let's just get trail cams on the list, that probably would have happened. Yeah. But they don't, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
So, And I feel for like a non-resident. Think about a guy that's drawn in from Maryland or Pennsylvania or North Carolina.
Yeah.
And he's, you know what, I'm gonna do everything I can to shoot a deer on public ground. I'm gonna come out here in the first part of October and I'm gonna put out some cell cams and I'm gonna watch them and then I'm gonna come back in the peak of the rut. It's just not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, I kind of honestly like it. Yeah, you feel for the non-residents, but like we're kind of in the same boat too. I mean, it probably wouldn't be a huge issue if we could hunt every single day and go to and be at these spots and see what's going on, but we can't hunt every day.
Yeah.
And like when you get lucky enough to have a day that is the right wind, right weather, yada yada yada. Now there's a really good chance that you'll have all that, but it's the wrong spot.
Yeah.
And that's where the trail cams really come into play, because even if it was a non-cell cam, you can still, piece some more pieces to the puzzle together and have a better idea. But now it just feels like it's such a crapshoot.
Yeah, I feel like for me, pre-cell cameras, trail cams helped you for the next day.
Yeah.
Cell cams help you for that day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, I feel like, and again, if the DNR is listening to this, first off, I apologize if I've said anything that offends you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you do. You guys are awesome. Thank you for managing the resource. You're smarter than us.
Yes.
But, I was thinking about this earlier. I'm like, well, there may be a lot more sits of
just twiddling your thumbs.
Well, just like, picked wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Picked wrong.
Yeah.
Because when you hear this, it's almost like deer in the headlights, no pun intended. Your life flashes before your eyes. I'm thinking about like, man, I really, again, I've been on a doe mission these last couple of years.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I've really knocked some deer down because of trail cameras and because I know where the does are walking out.
Yeah.
And then I go, okay, that's where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And now I just don't know that.
Well,
I know.
You can now, though. You're still on private land where you're knocking down all those does.
I know, but still, I've done it on public ground too.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there's public ground spots that it's just like, hey, I got a deer walking by here, like, let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
Like us early October 1st, October 2nd last year.
Yeah.
Hey, dude, there's a whole pile of does walking down this edge, like, let's go in there.
Yeah.
And so, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm glad that, I'm really glad that this happened today because, I mean, again, I apologize. This is pretty unfiltered.
Yeah.
This is just our stance and our perspective. The DNR has a tough job, and apologies if I'm coming off like a
yeah.
But yeah, I just heard that and I was just like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Like, it just kind of felt like it all kind of made sense and came together like, oh, the survey and oh, like when we were at the meeting and some of the things that we kind of heard said and like,
yeah.
And you ask and then you get this kind of like real, like real candid response. Like, I mean, you're looking at the guy and you're like, you know more than you're telling me.
Yeah,
you know what
exactly.
I mean? And then here this comes out. You're like, all right. And I get it. Like they can't, like they have a job to do and they just can't like tell everybody everything off the bat. But it just like, I mean, dude, you have 7 trail cameras. You just bought 4 more and you have like no use for them.
Yeah. I would not have bought them at all if I knew about this.
Yeah.
Like it's.
Yeah. I mean, 7 trail
frustrating.
cameras for public ground. Like that's what you were going to use them for.
Yeah.
And you think about all the people. I mean, think about retailers. Think about Shields.
Yeah.
They've already probably put in their orders for the year. And I would assume, I mean, I'm just guessing here, but you'd think that they would sell 10 to 15, 20% less than they were planning on maybe. You know what I mean?
15% of the hunters are using public land.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big number.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
That's just residents.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's.
But again, and that's the thing too, like the precedent had already been set with tree stands.
Yeah.
But
I think too, arguably, I mean, like if you think about tree stands and trail cameras, if you're really concerned about conserving the natural resource, I mean, you're skinning up a tree, hanging sticks on there, getting them real tight, and clamping into them and going all the way up the tree. Like, what's the difference? Like, it's just one strap around a small tree. Like, I feel like that's just it just makes no sense to me why you would take the trail cams away. And maybe I can understand the cell cams if people think that's unethical. Well, then just say you can only use regular non-transmitting cameras then. Like, at least you can still go put a camera out somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's like every single thing in this world is evolving right now. Like you have to, like, everything evolves at the same time. Like, why are you cutting back on that? Like, for like the cell cams thing, like,
yeah, it's just, I mean, this maybe this is the worst analogy ever, but look at the sport of golf, right? Golf as a whole, if it's the PGA or whoever, they're throttling back the golf ball, right? They've come out and said, okay, enough. We gotta say stop here.
yeah,
These guys keep hitting it farther and farther and farther, and golf courses keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it takes up more real estate and everything else. And, and they're just like, and there's the tradition of golfing and da-da-da-da-da, and they're trying to balance all this stuff. And they're just like, we're stopping it. Like, we're throttling the golf ball back.
Yeah.
First for pros and then for amateurs. And it's just, we got to bring it back a little bit.
Yeah.
And this is obviously the DNR is taking a stance. They're saying, hey, man, we got to stop it here.
Well, and
go ahead. I'm sorry.
My devil's advocate to that is, like, I totally agree with what you're saying. Like, yeah, you got to throttle it back at some point, but the difference is that's directly giving you an advantage. Trail cams or cell cams, sure, they give you an advantage, but like half the time when you get that good cell cam picture, you're not in the woods, and if you are in the woods, you still have to do a lot of things right to make it happen.
Yeah. Well,
it's not like, hey, I got a cell cam picture of a giant buck. Oh, I'm killing him.
Yeah.
100%. That's not how it works. Like, sure, it's really good to know where he's at and what he's doing, but like, there's still so many things that need to line up before you can actually kill him.
Well, and the other thing that I would love to ask somebody is why?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
why are you guys doing this?
Yeah, 100%.
Because, it's like my question is, like, why are you doing it? Like, are you doing it because we're harvesting too many deer?
Yeah.
Like, do you think it's not sustainable how many deer we're harvesting? Like, when we had that guy Jace here, it's like, well, how many, if you issue 100 doe tags, like, how many does do you think are going to get killed? He's like, oh, well, it's about 30%.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, if so, does that hold pretty true for the entire season? Like how many tags are sold and how many deer are harvested?
Yeah.
It's not 60, 70, 80%. It's a lower number.
Yeah.
So it's like, why are you doing this? Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, why? Like,
Yeah.
what's it? And again, is it just because of the resource of whitetails, or is it like one of the things that Jace shed light on last week, or a couple weeks ago, was about how he talked about kind of the morale and the almost like the relationship between the Iowa DNR and the public.
Yeah.
The relationship and the thought process of the hunter. You know what I mean? And when they issue 100 doe tags, what that makes somebody think, like, okay, they haven't issued 100 doe tags in this county in ever.
Yeah.
Like, wow, the deer population must be doing better. Oh, I feel like if I see that doe walk by, I'm not afraid to shoot that doe.
Yeah.
So did something play a part of it because we talked to him. I mean, it's on the podcast. How did you guys feel when you walked in that spot and saw a bunch of trail cams? Was that did we talk about that?
Yeah.
And, it did make me feel like, I was like, oh man, what a bummer. We talked about that today. I'm like, gosh, dang.
Yeah.
It's like, I guess that's just the world we live in.
Yeah.
So when I do walk out there, is it going to make me feel more of like a pure good feeling deep down inside? Yeah, it probably will be.
Yeah.
It will make me feel like I'll be like, heck yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be excited about that, because I don't have I've got 5 cell cams and Tatum hates it. She hates it. She's like 60 some bucks a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's other brands out there that you can get so you can just pay a lower number, but I've got them all over the place. You know what I mean? But I don't have 100 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk to some of these guys at the Iowa Deer Classic, and it's just insane.
Yeah.
There's outfitters that have hundreds of them, like hundreds.
Yeah.
And when you do go into a random piece of public ground and you see all these trail cams, you're like, those guys do have an advantage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and so do I feel like it kind of levels the playing field? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, man, it's weird. At first during this conversation, I was pretty like mad.
Yeah.
Not mad, but just frustrated.
Yeah.
I mean, I see both sides of it.
Yeah.
I just feel like I just wish, and again, that's the other thing that we're not doing is like, well, what's the alternative? Like, what's the alternative? Like, you know, if they were to say something's got to change, how do we change it? Like, how do we change it?
Yeah.
Well, don't make them cell cams then. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
let us still use trail cameras. Like,
Yeah.
we've been using trail cameras I mean, dude, I remember as a kid, guys had trail cameras that had actually a Polaroid
Yeah,
camera
for years.
and had a little sensor and it literally took a picture.
Yeah.
Like, I remember those,
Yeah.
like big, huge Johnsons, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's just been so long with trail cameras and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, no more.
Yeah, and it's such a huge part of hunting and the hunting industry and stuff. It just seems weird to just
Well,
done.
and it's kind of one of those things too. And I wrote this down at the bottom of the page. It seems like when things get taken away, they don't usually get handed back to you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This
definitely.
seems like I
Yeah.
mean, who knows? Maybe a couple years from now, they go, you know what? We're going to actually put it back on the
Yeah.
equipment that can, you know, be left overnight.
Yeah.
Jackpot.
Yeah.
Just I don't know. It just seems like it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I don't. You were saying just a little bit ago that like you might feel better going into a spot knowing that there's no trail cameras there. It kind of makes you feels a little bit like you. And for me, I think I'm gonna feel 10 times worse.
Oh, really?
Yes, because here's why. I've only been hunting public land. Last year was my first year really hunting public land, so I'm still in the huge learning stages of really hunting as a whole. I grew up hunting the same 4 stands my entire life. I learned a lot, but you learn so much more when you go onto a piece of public land. And I guarantee you the first couple of times, I'm not going to be going in with an excited feeling. I'm going to be going in with almost not nervous, but like a unsure feeling the entire time. Like, and I know it's just going to rack my brain. I'm like, man, I shouldn't be here. I should be over there, blah, 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 blah. And like I said to you earlier, like the trail cams were a huge part of what I do because it helped me justify where I'm going to go and hunt. And I felt good going into a hunt. But now with the lack of experience and the lack of, I guess you could say, skill in hunting, it's going to bring such an unsure feeling every time I go hunting. And I know I'm just going to be going crazy. I know it.
Yeah. I guess I understand where you're coming from. The thing that comes to mind when you say all that is I think about when I was your age or younger,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And starting really going out on my own is, you know, and it's something that I used to say a lot, like the deer are here.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're here. And we've talked about this before. There's cover, there's food, and there's water.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're here.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what you just have to lean on.
Yeah.
Is the deer are here. Like
Yeah.
they're here.
Yeah.
I mean, when I look at you right now, I don't want to say the person, but you know who I'm thinking of right now.
Yeah.
Doesn't use trail cameras at all.
Yeah.
Doesn't even own one.
Yeah.
And they go when it's the right time. And I know that's tricky because we do have full-time jobs.
Yeah.
But the person we're talking about has full-time jobs, a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they just go when the time's right.
Yeah.
They try to hunt, even whether it's the right stand on the right day on the right wind, but they just put themselves in the woods when they know it's the right time. And they go, well, geez, look there's a bunch of hardwoods. There's a bunch of switchgrass, or there's a cornfield. Like there's got to be deer here.
Yeah.
And I think what you know about the state of Iowa, we just talked about the history of, or we've talked about the history of deer in Iowa. They can live about anywhere.
Yeah. Right.
And so they're there,
Right.
but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting thing. It'd be really interesting to see the type of response that they get.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I mean, we're not like sharpening our pitchforks and like going down to the state capitol.
Of course not.
Like bring back cameras.
Yeah.
Like we're not, I mean, it's but not happy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even like Tatum called me today. She's like, how's it going? I was like, state of Iowa isn't going to allow us to use trail cams on public land. And she's like, that's what you're mad about? I'm like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a little silly, but But I mean, it's important to us,
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, yeah.
So,
I mean, I just keep thinking about the bucks that we had on camera last year and like knowing now that like we probably will never see them ever again. And that just kills me. It just kills me. I was so excited. I just had an order of Scrape Fix come in for some velvet puff or whatever. I'm like, come on, baby, that's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna be able to watch these bucks grow. And now, nope.
I mean, we were gonna do a cool thing, with that Trophy Rock.
Yeah.
Met some of those guys, and we were gonna do a cool thing. We'll still do it, but we can't do the whole. We were gonna do it where we were gonna have trail cams on public land and trail cams on private land, and have Trophy Rock on the private and nothing on the public, and just see the difference in the inventory over the summer.
Yeah,
because it's kind of hard to track down bucks over summer. You're kind of rolling the dice if you can get them to walk by. It's still fun to have them out.
Yeah,
and you just never know. You know what I mean? Like you try to put them where it's like, okay, that's where they're bedding down. That's where they're going out to feed.
Yeah,
and they're a little bit more chillaxed, in the summer months.
Right. Yeah.
But if you can put mineral out, you can really concentrate them and get them where they'll kind of stand there for a while and they turn and look and they're bedding down.
Yeah.
And so we were going to see the difference in what we were going to see.
Yeah.
Oh, can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, we can still do it. We just have to do it both on private land.
Yeah.
But if we're doing that, we want to put the mineral out.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, it's just little things. We're just kind of like, dang.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think the biggest thing is
like you said. Sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, some like number 9, 33, that that double main beam little guy that was probably a 1.5 years old.
Yeah.
Think about that. Think about him at 3. Yeah. It's just like, but it's just like to know that. I mean, very, very slim chance we'll ever see them again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, like, the trail cams, I mean, I look at those pictures all the time too. It's fun just to have them.
Oh, yeah.
Just to know that they're there. It's just, and they're still there. It's just really, really fun to see them.
Yeah.
And go, oh man, look what he threw this year. Look at how he grew.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, that guy's going downhill.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So.
Yep.
And I mean, think about the guy that's, and dude, I'm not very far removed from only being a public land guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just gotten these private spots in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
When I first said Ozonics, and for years before that, especially when I worked in Colorado, I kind of, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to hunt my private spots. So I talked to the landowners and was like, hey, I hate to say this, but I'm going to kind of like give these up. Like if you have other people, don't be afraid to tell them yes. I won't be out here. You know what I mean? And that happened. And I gave those spots up. And then now, I was originally from Belmont, Iowa, which is like southwest of Mason City, Clear Lake. I moved to Clear Lake. I wasn't a local person.
Right.
So knocking on doors didn't get me anywhere. I heard a lot of no's.
Yeah.
In some very politely, some very rudely, but people were like, no.
Yeah.
So I just kind of resorted. I'm like, well, there's good public ground around here. There's good public ground all over the state of Iowa.
Yeah.
I'll just start hunting public. And I did.
Right.
Hunt a lot. I went back and hunted stuff that I hunted when I was at Iowa State. That's all I hunted was private or public ground.
Yeah.
I actually no, I had one private spot, but then I still hunted all the public.
Yeah, exactly.
I was probably 80-20 public to private.
Right.
And so, man, you just think about some of those real big pieces, like the Des Moines River Valley. Well, I mean, there's a lot of that just won't have trail cam in there.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing to mention too. And I know we're jumping all over the place here, but like, man, you think that is going to be hard to enforce. Yeah. Super hard. I don't even know what they're called, but we always see them at the consumer shows. They have these extender rods.
Yeah.
Like it's called is it like an easy hang thing or something?
I don't know.
I don't know what it's called. I'm sorry if somebody knows what it's called. I don't know what it's called. But the guys are always super cool. We see them like, hey, but it's like this rod that you jam in the tree and then you could screw to the tree so it keeps them higher. It's a great thing. Like if you're in a state or Canada province that's using for black bears, they just don't get at them. They won't palm up so much and rip them down. Or if you just want to know that they're not going to get messed with. Yeah. I was like, well, I guess guys are just going to probably start doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if they're up there, how are you going to get to it?
Yeah.
Yep. And it just seems like it's going to be hard to enforce. It's it doesn't seem like there's like thousands and thousands of DNR officers. Yeah. So is that what they're going to do now? Is like, oh, you know what we're going to do today? We're going to go walk out here and look for trail cameras.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just seems weird.
Yeah, it does.
And again, just the fact that like the law was there and had never been enforced, but now they're enforcing it.
Yeah.
It just seems like a little bit of a cop out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Do you know what I'm saying? It just feels like it almost, it's like you win on a technicality.
Yeah.
Or you lose on a technicality.
Yeah.
It's like, really, guys? Like, if you just beat me, like, okay, handshake, great job, you won.
Yeah.
But it just kind of feels like unfair.
Yeah.
It feels like unfinished. It feels unresolved. It feels.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels to me like the way.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. It feels to me like the way that they're, well, I don't want to say handling it, but the way, that they kind of say that you can't take a stance on whatever the attorney general says. It feels like they're just giving up. They're just like, oh, yep, nope, it's done. It doesn't matter what we think. It's just done. And I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
I don't like that one bit. It's like, man, this means a lot to people.
Yeah. Well, I guess in their defense, it means a lot to them too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in their defense too, it's like we're sitting here, we're only talking about it from the stance of the deer.
Yeah.
They're talking about a stance for the deer. They're talking about the stance for the landscape, for the land. They're talking about the stance of all the other species that they're managing and that are pressured and influenced and whatever may be displaced or affected by hunters.
Yeah.
Nature watchers and campers and hikers and rock climbers and mountain bikers and every other person that enjoys the great outdoors.
Yeah.
It's not just us.
Yeah.
So that's the defense of that is like there is a lot to it. And maybe that, who knows, maybe they're getting pressure from other groups like that are like, yeah, I walk on the woods, I see all these boxes with these antennas sticking up. And it's like, is someone watching me? Like, is that a camera? Like, am I on camera now? Like, I don't want to be on camera.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't give you permission to take my picture or take a video of me.
Yeah.
Like I would think for somebody that doesn't know, it probably does feel very like intrusive, like an invasion of privacy.
Yeah.
Like they go out in the woods to feel a sense of like, wonder or just to be at peace and alone. And then all of a sudden there's this thing sitting there. You're like, well, what the heck is that?
Well, I feel like they could say the same thing about people sitting up in a tree stand watching them walk by. So what's next? Are you going to take away hunting?
Oh, I don't think they're going to take away hunting.
This is just, I'm so.
Oh, I know. It's okay.
Ticked off,
it's
dude.
okay. Calm down.
Stop it.
You know what it makes me think of? It makes me think of the Big Bang Theory with Sheldon when Penny has to sing him, "Calm kitty, nice kitty."
That won't help.
Na 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 na.
That won't help this situation.
Calm kitty, nice kitty.
I'm going to have to wake up crabby every single morning now. The first thing I do is check trail cameras, and it just brought me so much happiness. And now it's just
happiness.
and then now it's just gone.
You have a lisp. Are you on the movie? You have a little bit of a lisp. You know what? I'll tell you what. Who everybody should feel sorry for is not you.
Yeah, I know. I'm
me. That's how you should feel. Guess what I'm going to be? Mr. Punching Bag right here. I'm going to be Mr. having to listen to it every day.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you got killer private spots, though. You know what I mean? And I know
what does that have to do with it? I still have to listen to you complain. That's what I'm saying. There's only so much cheese for your wine.
But I said at the end of the day, you still get to go home and be like, oh, yeah, he's got some sweet pics on my camera. And I know I am throwing a huge pity party, but guess what? I really do not care. All these people are probably going to be complaining, oh, well, maybe just learn how to. Yeah, sure. I will. I hope you go shoot a giant next year. God.
You know what, Tonto? Oh, man. Yeah, I think that there's probably a lot of people that are going to be having, when they hear this news, whether it's if they've already heard it, if they open the reg book and they go like, what the, what I mean? Yeah. They're going to be like, wait a second, hold on a second, wait, what? Hold on. They're looking at another phone on the app and they're like zooming. They're like, okay, let me read this the right way.
Yeah.
Like, okay, hold on a sec.
Yeah.
Like they're probably thinking, I got to go take some cameras down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was seriously though. I think that if we're talking unethical, I think that we should knock bows down to 40 pounds max.
Well, dude,
or scopes too. Scopes on a gun on muzzleloader. Nope. I just think
there's certain states
on
that,
private land, I think it should be okay though.
there's certain states that do that. Western states, they only a lot of iron sights on muzzleloaders.
Yeah, I think I personally believe that on public land, I think you have to use iron sights, but then on private, since you pay more, you get to use a scope. That's what I think.
Oh. It's so funny how mad you are. This is about as spitting mad as you get.
It's just ridiculous, man.
Oh. It's gonna be okay.
Yep.
Now you just listen. You need to get your walking boots on, and you need to put a tank of gas in your truck, and get out your Onyx map and just start driving the countryside, knocking on some doors.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you what, dude, it's funny, and I don't know if we've talked to this before or not, but like that is kind of lost because it's funny, that was kind of lost even when I did it then because people would tell me no, but then they'd be like, really appreciate you stopping.
Yeah.
Because most people don't stop.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, I mean, that's what I used to do for a long time. I used to just, it's an unnerving thing.
Yeah.
You know, because like if you know, you live out in the country, you kind of know who's going to be around, and then all of a sudden you get this person like knocking on your door, ringing the doorbell, like who is this guy? You're like a vacuum salesman, or like what's the deal? You know, no knock to vacuum salesman, but you're like, they kind of got people walk up to you like all skeptical look on their face, like, can I help you? And then you're like trying to be all positive, like, hey, hi, how you doing? My name's Cole, and and you're trying to explain yourself, and then they just like cut you off. Mm-hmm. They're like, no.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that guy. I've told you about this guy before. I was like, hey, I just didn't know if you owned any of this ground back here. And he's like, yep. I was like, oh, I just didn't know if you had anybody hunting out here. If you mind if I'd love to do some whitetail hunting. I didn't know. And he goes, you could tell, like it could like, he had like a side-by-side sitting there or something. And he's like, do I look like I hunt? So then just to be how I am, I'm like, no, you don't look like you hunt at all. You know, he's like, no, you can't hunt here. I'm like, all right. Yeah. And he was like, I appreciate you stopping. No. Yeah. I was like, okay. I just got my truck and drove away.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing too. If I would go and knock on a door and say, hey, can I hunt your land? And they said no, I'd be like, you know what? That's fine. I can go cut my teeth on some public land. I'll just hunt it like it's a private piece, kind of, put some trail cams out and stuff. And because that's the thing. I don't really want to go knock on doors. I want to hunt public land.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the interesting thing about even this discussion is, again, you and I have just a different experience with it because I remember it. I remember hunting way pre-cell cameras, pre-cameras, and just hunting. Yeah. And there was a lot of times you just went out and you just kind of go, well, like I said, the deer are here. You know, they're here. This is the right spot. It's a good wind. I'm hoping that they come out this way. And you didn't 100% know what was there. Yeah. I mean, how many times have I talked about that 190-inch deer that was before cell cams? That was just a trail camera. Yeah. When I first started using trail cameras, what I did, because I didn't want to walk so far off the beaten path and like tromp through the woods, this is way pre-ozonics. This is way pre-scent control. This is me in like my early 20s. Yeah. Like I would set cameras right underneath my stands. Yeah. So then at least I knew roughly what was going on near there or really close to it. You know what I mean? Like within 100 yards. So it's like, okay, that deer was within bow range. I'm shooting a recurve bow. Yeah. So that day I had this tree stand, this huge cottonwood tree, and it was a bear getting it up there. And it was high. Yeah. Big old tree. I'd use like double ratchet straps. It was just like not a good idea, but that's how I am, right? Yeah. Well, there was this big thicket right out to the northwest of me, and I had, just so happened, and I put the stand there for a reason, there was an unbelievable scrape right there, just a big old scrape. I'm like, okay, jackpot. I'll put the camera right there. Well, I can just sneak in, and like the trees here and the scrapes here, I can just like sneak right along here, walk like 5 yards to the camera that's pointing at the scrape, switch out cards, climb up in the stand. Yeah. And then I had to carry a digital camera because my cell phone, I didn't have a little insert deal that you can do now. So I had a digital camera in my bag. And then I put it in there when I'm sitting in the stand and I'm flipping through the pictures, looking at them. And then boom, there that buck pops up. And it's just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Which the craziest part about that story is I sat there the rest of that day. I was actually back from Colorado. We were on a break. Like I had a little bit of a leeway. And I had like a week and a half, and I hunted every day for about 2 weeks. All day sits every day, and I never had an opportunity, never saw him.
Yeah.
But that day after I got that trail cam, I walked back out to the road, and this was at dark, and there's a car parked right behind my car, or like a Jeep or something. And I'm like, oh, great. So sometimes I would just kind of sit in the woods and hopefully they drive away or whatever, because there'd be people that would stop and like kind of see my car. Well, I'm doing that. I'm kind of like looking, and then I was like, well, I'll just finally go, because he just kept sitting there. It was a DNR guy. It was an officer.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Good. Licenses, can I see your license and everything? I'm like, oh, sure, yeah, that's fine. And I had it, and I handed it to him. He's like, oh, all right, yeah. Yeah, I see your car here parked all the time. I was like, oh, okay. He literally was like, seen any big bucks? And I just got that guy on trail camera that day. I'm like, nope. I haven't seen nothing.
Yeah.
And I just had gotten that guy on trail cam. But
no, what I was trying to say is like, the public land here is awesome. It's incredible. It's really cool how the DNR sets it up and stuff. And it just feels like now you're not going to be able to really use it and experience it to the full extent, I feel like.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, it kind of went from being able to be in a lot of places at one time to only being in one place at one time.
Yep.
So, yeah, it'll be really interesting to see the public reaction.
Yeah, definitely.
I think this is part 1A of the public reaction.
Yeah.
And again, when you showed me that comment and just, and looking at that, there's a lot of people that are, are like, that can't be true. Please tell me it's not true.
Yeah.
Exactly. What are they thinking?
Yeah.
Or saw that coming,
Yeah.
And there is quite the plethora of opinions on it.
Yeah.
Obviously we're very pro trail camera.
Yeah.
I think if you talk to the pro no trail camera, they'd be like, well, what's the big deal?
Yeah,
if you talk to somebody in the middle, I think maybe what they would say is like, well, they allow tree stands, and like, why was this the thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Are we killing too many deer? Is it causing a problem? Like, why? Like, what's the reasoning?
Right.
Like, what was they're like, oh, well, we're just enforcing the law that already exists.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if it was already there before, if you were allowing trail cams for it, wouldn't you want to just leave it the same? Why wouldn't you just put it in there?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we don't actually want them. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's what we're getting at.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're straight.
Yep.
But like I said, there was questions on the survey, and that might have had a huge impact.
Yeah, it could have been kind of the tipping point a little bit almost.
Because it was kind of a mixed bag
it
of,
definitely was.
On what people thought. Some people thought, yeah, it gives an unfair advantage, or, do you use cell cams? Yep. There was a lot of people that did.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Anyway, that's the big news. Yep. This ended up being kind of a spontaneous podcast.
Yeah.
As this news broke this morning or last night, and I'm like, hey, switching things around. This is what we need to do it on.
Yeah.
So I think it worked out really good. Yeah, love to hear other people's perspective on it.
Yep.
And again, apologies if we're offending anyone that might be listening.
Yeah.
That thinks that we're completely off.
Apologies for the pity party. We're just in our feels a little bit, or I am at least.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah. All right. Another episode in the books. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast. Thanks again. Have a good day. Get your truck cams off public ground. It can't be there. It's illegal. It's not illegal. It's just being enforced by the laws that were already there, that were interpreted differently, but now they're interpreted a different way.
Yeah. Get them out on private land.
Private land only. No party hunting for non-residents.
See you next week.
Stay classy.